Hello.
And welcome to Let's Talk About Book, where we talk about book. And we're currently reading Game of Thrones by George R. R. Martin. I'm Smeevca.
And I'm Strawberry.
And yeah, that's our intro.
Yep.
That's how we do it. we do it, but then every time I'm like, what are all the bits that are included in it?
Sometimes I say, this is completely not related.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I'll think of the VeggieTales, like intro, like after we do ours, and then the silly songs with Larry, the part of the show where Larry comes out and sings a silly song. That'll just
come into
my head after we finish our intro, fairly often.
That's really funny. I did not know that. Alright, so in this section we're going to be 7 chapters. The thing about is that all the chapters are just titled the character name, so keeping track of it, I have to have my list of the chapters from the last time available, so I can be okay, so we're starting with Catelyn IV and we're ending on Bran IV, I think. I don't think we have another Bran chapter hidden in here.
No, I think it's just the one at the end.
Yeah, it's just the one at the end. So it's Catelyn IV to Bran IV.
Yeah.
But yeah, do we have anything? Oh yeah, because we've been because part of me is back when we were doing Mistborn and stuff, it's and then the epigraphs.
Yeah.
But we don't have the epigraphs before going into it. We have been doing a little bit of a what you remember previously, things that have been coming back to you, character impressions and whatnot. We had a funny moment where I was Petyr Baelish, and you were I don't remember Petyr Baelish. Littlefinger, I remember.
I fully did not.
Because I said Petyr Baelish, and you were that name's maybe something.
Maybe familiar or whatever. And, but I really remembered,
And then you start talking about Littlefinger, and a little ways in, I'm Petyr Baelish is Littlefinger.
And then I'm wait.
Mm-hmm. And I was just I was unsure if you suddenly remembered or if you were not, you're thinking they're different. So.
Yeah, no, I fully didn't connect.
Yeah, because I was going through and doing my underlining sections for what we're reading. And so I was looking at Petyr, and I'm Petyr Baelish, he's
Yeah. And I was wait, that name's familiar, but I don't know. I don't remember. I can't connect it to anyone.
Yeah, and then Littlefinger, isn't he? Because you are you kind of remember some stuff about Littlefinger.
Yes, I do.
Or have some vague or some inclinations about him.
Yeah.
You're
I feel he's involved in the whole betrayal and everything.
Right. The betrayal.
Yeah.
Ned. Yeah.
And everything.
Mm-hmm. Right. The thing that leads to the thing that everyone knows about Game of Thrones.
Right.
to talk about spoilers without talking about spoilers. But yeah, and I don't think we don't get any new POV.
No.
In this section or anything. And I don't think we get any new POV throughout the rest of the book. I don't know that we do. I think we've kind of met all of our perspective characters at this point. Maybe I'll be surprised at some point by someone. But I think this is kind of our group at this point. Because Rickon's too young to have a perspective chapter. But yeah, so I guess we can just jump straight into our chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, Catelyn IV, 1-1.
Right.
We've been joking about it being Bible verses.
Oh, right. The sentences are, kind of each a verse, and then each...
Yeah, it's you can have, paragraph and then sentence.
You'd probably want to have multiple paragraphs as a...
chapter and verse.
Yeah.
Gotcha, yeah. Yeah, I don't know my terms for that and whatnot. What parts of the chapters, which parts of the verses, and all that. Yeah,
because the book is, Book of James, and then chapter 1... verse 3 or chapter 3 verse 2.
Right. Yeah, but we're starting with Catelyn. Catelyn is on a boat going to King's Landing. Although...
I actually forgot about the whole Catelyn's side adventure.
Yeah, Catelyn's side adventure is a whole thing. I definitely forgot about her going on the boat.
Yeah,
although we don't really see the boat ride. It's just we're an hour from King's Landing on the boat, and it's a Tyroshi, a Tyroshi merchant of some sort. The Tyroshi were notorious for their avarice and also for their being very colorful. Some guy named Moreo is the one who has the ship and is bringing them over. And he has a forked green beard. The Tyroshi loved bright colors, even in their facial hair. And so this is the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because they cut that entirely out of the show. When you go over into Essos, the Tyroshi are dyeing their hair crazy colors.
Got you.
And,
that's fun.
Yeah, it's there's a bunch of characters in the series that have bright, crazy dyed hair and stuff that just don't do it in the show.
That's wild. You would think as a visual medium that you
right?
would want to play into that and show that.
Game of Thrones, the TV show, drains a lot of color out of the world, honestly.
Yeah.
It's one thing when, you're on the wall and everything's, gray and white and
blue,
and
light
blue.
blues.
Right, it's so in the show, so you get that everything's kind of gray and dark and black and white and kind of stuff, and that's very much in keeping with it. And it's not the show has no color or anything.
Yeah.
But I feel in its sort of, in the prestige television of it all, it's not going for, it's leaning into the dark stuff while also cutting out a lot of the worst of the dark stuff.
Yeah.
And also cutting out a lot of the color. And Tilly is just all up in my face, and now she's flopped over on top of me, which is better.
Yeah.
It's better than being all in my face while I'm trying to talk. I'm I don't know if you can hear me just being
moving around
trying to talk around her head into the microphone. And she gets literally right between me and the microphone. But yeah, they cut so much of the color out of the show.
Yeah.
When you're in King's Landing and stuff, it's it's bright and there's...
Yeah, but it's a lot of beiges and I feel lighter yellows and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. It's everything's a little bit all the color palettes get a little bit washed out.
Yeah.
They get a little bit sameyed, and also it's a lot of the castles are just kind of gray.
Yeah.
Or they're gray, or they're sort of a sandy sort of stone, kind of almost a yellowish beige, you were saying, stuff like that. And so it's you have your lighter areas and your darker areas in the show color-wise, but then it's a lot of the super vivid Technicolor stuff is kind of cut out to sort of make it more serious, because there will be a character in particular who has these bright colors that the show is no, he doesn't, because we need you to take him a bit more seriously than that.
Yeah. But if they have it more spread throughout, then it doesn't it wouldn't stick out really.
Right, exactly. It's because there's a guy with it's blue and he's got a gold mustache and stuff like that. It's a whole thing.
That it gives me very Capital from the Hunger Games.
Yes, yeah, exactly. If we had a bit more of that.
Yeah, Caesar Flickerman or something,
Right.
Because I think he has the blue.
Yeah, I don't know my Hunger Games stuff very well. I didn't read any of the books or see any of the movies.
Oh,
I have
that's one that you could totally read.
Read for the show.
Yeah, Hunger Games is great.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's I feel at the time. That it was sort of big in my age group. I was sort of dissuaded from it by other things. I think part of it is the whole, the young girls like it of it all.
Yeah.
It gets kind of shit on in certain ways, even though as people go back and reevaluate Hunger Games,
great,
they're actually this does hold up in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And it also the movies and that marketing focus more on the love triangle and stuff that is
the twilight of it all.
Yeah. It is in the books. I'm not saying it's not in the books. Right. It is, but it's it's treated a bit differently.
Right, because everything was sort of trying to be the next Twilight in that sense. So even though it's not the same sort of like paranormal romance kind of stuff, it's
they wanted to like lean into that.
Yeah, it was in the sort of the YA apocalyptic boom.
Yeah.
You know. Which I think that I've seen like at least one, maybe two videos talking about that.
Yeah.
I think Sarah Zed might have a video about like
YA
dystopia, not post-apocalyptic, dystopia. That's the term I was looking for. The YA dystopia genre and how
how interesting it is.
Yeah, because just like, you know, the Spore Wars sure would suck if there were the Spore Wars, I guess. You know. Yeah, because I think also they have like Dan Olsen from Folding Ideas voicing a bit and he's like, the proper noun academy where they receive the proper noun test.
But yeah,
no, so it's like, and you know, they try and make Game of Thrones a TV show.
Yeah.
It's prestige TV, everything's gray.
Yeah.
And sort of muted and whatnot. While in the books it's very colorful.
Yeah.
It's like so much more like weird colors than you normally think. And like we're on a boat with this captain who's got like a fucking forked green beard, and it's just kind of incidental, you know.
Yeah, I don't think I realized that it was like green like that.
Yep. I pay attention to it in part because it's something that I see like Alt Shift X talk about and whatnot. The like colors and stuff and like adaptation stuff, and people talk about like adaptation and whatnot, it's one of the things that they'll sort of like bring up, and so I'm sort of like more focused on it now than I was sort of the first time. Like I couldn't have told you that this guy was green, but I do definitely think like when I was going through it, I noticed some of the color, especially like out in like Essos and stuff is where because Westeros is very here's, you know, European fantasy as you are very sort of familiar with our own, you know, fantastical flares to it.
Yeah.
But Essos is where, you know, we get our Orientalism.
Yeah.
You know, our sort of like, look at this wild exotic land and whatnot. And you know, some of it is like, you know, depending on where you are out in Essos, it is explicitly sort of like, you know, East Asian-y, but other parts of it are more just sort of like weird, their own thing. But yeah, so in this chapter, Catelyn is heading into King's Landing on the boat with Sir Roderick, one of the knights from Winterfell.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, we're gonna see this guy, Sir Aaron Santagar, who's the King's Master at Arms, and we're gonna ask him about this dagger.
Yeah.
But they're like, we're worried because like whenever we get to King's Landing, people are gonna like see us and recognize us.
So they're like trying to hide and like get like an in off.
Yeah, like, they're trying to sort of like lay low and stuff. Yes, there are those at court who will know you on sight. Catelyn's mouth grew tight. Littlefinger, she murmured. Yeah, and she remembers him. He was Lord Baelish now. Her brother Edmure had given him that name, Littlefinger, long ago at Riverrun. His family's modest holdings were on the smallest of the fingers, and Petyr had been slight and short for his age. So he got called Littlefinger, and he was raised by the Tullys as like their ward.
Right.
So he
and like he was in love with her or whatever.
Yes. She saw him as a brother. He, her, you know, I believe they say, I've underlined so many parts, and then I'm just like, oh no, all of it. But his affections for her were more than brotherly.
I do that all the time. And then I'm like, wait, do I really want to read all this out? No. I'm picking and choosing, and then I'm like, wait, I missed something.
Yes. Yeah. But his feelings for me were more than brotherly. I was to wed Brandon Stark. Petyr challenged for the right to my hand. It was madness. Brandon was 20. Petyr was scarcely 15. I had to beg Brandon to spare Petyr's life, which, like, Brandon, why are you gonna murder this 15-year-old? You're 20. But, you know, Westerosi society has a real big toxic masculinity problem.
Yeah.
It's a society that very much prizes violence in a lot of ways and encourages the nobility to be
violent.
Weird and violent. But yeah, let him off with a scar. I haven't seen him since. He wrote me at River Run after Brandon was killed, but I burned the letter unread. By then I knew that Ned would marry me in his brother's stead. And Littlefinger, he sits on the small council now, which is like the council that like directly advises the king. So Petyr Baelish has really moved up in the world. And he was... I knew he would rise high. He was always clever, even as a boy. It was one thing to be clever and another to be wise. So, yep. And, and then they're heading up to King's Landing, and we get some descriptions of King's Landing and, like, some of the history and stuff. It was built 300 years ago, and Aegon the Conqueror sort of, like, first started doing his conquering from here, which is why it's called King's Landing. They, like... went to Dragonstone, set up there, and then they're like, all right, time to start conquering this place. And so they landed here in King's Landing and started conquering things. And so now this is sort of the seat of the king's power.
Got you.
Yeah. And there's Visenya's Hill and Hill of Rhaenys and Aegon's High Hill. And Visenya's Hill has the Great Sept of Baelor. The Rhaenys' Hill has the blackened walls of the Dragon Pit. Huge dome collapsing into ruin. Its bronze door closed now for a century. And then Aegon's Hill has the Red Keep. Huge 7 drum towers crowned with iron ramparts and all this stuff. Big red castle. Aegon the Conqueror had it built. His son, Maegor the Cruel, had it completed. Afterward, he had taken the heads of every stonemason, woodworker, and builder who had labored on it. Only the blood of the dragon would ever know the secrets of the fortress of the Dragon Lords. It's very Taj Mahal, if you're familiar with that. Because there's, like, a story... I don't know that it's, like, true per se, but there's a story that, like, after the Taj Mahal was built, he had all of... I think it was he had all their hands cut off or something, as opposed to killing all of them so they could never make anything...
Got you,
more beautiful than it or whatever. When I feel like that's part of sort of, like, this, like, inspiration behind this part of the sort of the history. And... the Vulgar Valyrian are the free cities, because Valyria is very much ancient Rome.
Got you.
Like, when you think about Valyria, it's definitely supposed to be this sort of, like, Rome-esque place, and Valyrian is very much like Latin. So it's like the free cities, the places sort of like, once Valyria fell, and all of its sort of like places that it ruled over are just sort of like left to their own. They now speak vulgar Valyrian. They speak their own sort of like, the Romance languages are being are being created with the collapse of the sort of centralized Valyrian Empire. Now the free cities, the places that were free now that Valyria is gone, are speaking their own vulgar Latin. And as a linguist, I'm like, ew, it's fun.
I love it.
Yep. So it's like, we'll go find an inn. Sir Roderick's like, I'll go, do this thing with the dagger, go talk to that guy. You stay behind because you'll be recognized. I've shaved. And I'm less likely to be, like, immediately recognized.
He's like, basically no one's ever seen me shaved.
No one's ever seen me shaved, so, like, I'll totally be fine. And it's like, all right, you go do that. They get to the inn. She's like, she falls asleep, and then she gets woken up by Petyr Baelish's men, who are like, hey, you gotta come see Lord Baelish. And it's do you know who I am? No, milady. My Lord Littlefinger said only to bring you to him and see that you were not mistreated. So they're just like, I don't know, we were just told to come here and pick you up. We don't really know who you are. So immediately, they're very immediately found out.
Oh by the person that she was like would recognize her or whatever.
So it's like Peter, and she's like, how did this information get out? And she was like, it was probably the captain, Morio. He knew that we were coming, and so he probably is the one who, like, leaked the information to, like, Peter. Or, like, his sort of network or whatever. And I think later we hear that it was because of Varys' spy network that they were sort of found out about, but the extent of his spy network, we don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's just sort of like, he just knows things that he shouldn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, someone told me. It's like, who? But she gets brought to Petyr.
Did he have a crow?
Who? Varys?
Yeah.
I mean, he always says the little birds.
The little birds. Because there was... I remember at one point reading it, and there was a crow that was eaten throughout the...
I think that's later, because up in the north.
Yeah.
Over at the wall, there's a crow who, like, hangs out.
So maybe he gets it from actual birds.
Yeah, that would be a fun little... because Catelyn's like, he must be performing some sort of like sorcery or something. Like, how the fuck does he know? I don't actually
know the extent or any like.
Yeah, because it's like magic's very mysterious in Game of Thrones. It's hard to know exactly like who does and doesn't. Like what is, it's never as like spelled out as like Mistborn is, as like Cosmere stuff is, and so it's like magic's more kind of mysterious in that way. But yeah, she goes and is brought before Petyr Baelish, Littlefinger, and they kind of chat. Petyr is little man. He's got like a pointed beard, like goatee thing. Yeah. He's got a little bit of gray hair, even though he's not quite 30, which he's younger than I sort of like expect him to be, in part because in the show everyone's older than they are in the books. So like he's also like probably more like in his 30s or 40s in the show. Yeah. But in here, he's not even quite 30 yet.
He's like our age.
Yeah, right. He's like literally like our age, now that you mention it. But yeah, no, and Catelyn's mad. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to anger you. And he looks guilty or whatever. And it's like, yeah, he always looks like he would he'll pull that. Yep, he would get into trouble, but then always look so sorry, so contrite. Yeah, and we get like a lot of description of him and stuff. And how'd you know I was in the city? Lord Varys knows all. I wanted to see you first. It's been too long. How many years? And Catelyn ignores him. Yeah. And Varys is known as the King's Spider. That's very much sort of the imagery around Varys. Yeah. Very the web. Yeah. Yeah, and like, so why are you here? Yeah. Why are you here, Catelyn? A wife is not allowed to yearn for her husband, and if a mother needs her daughters close, who can tell her no? Oh, very good, my lady, but please don't expect me to believe that. Yeah. He's like, I know you better than that. I know you better than that. You're here because there's some important business. And then Varys shows up. He was plump, perfumed, powdered, and as hairless as an egg. And... See, the thing is, on his feet were pointed slippers of soft velvet, and there's a whole running joke about Varys as a mermaid, because we never see his feet, but I'm like, there's like a whole thing, but I mean, whatever. But, that's just, it's always a joke theory, the Varys is a mermaid theory. He's... Gotta love a hiatus-brained fandom. Oh, yes. It has been on hiatus-brained for just an interminable amount of time. We get Maester Pycelle name dropped. That's another thing. All the maesters immediately. Yeah. I have such a hard time remembering who, what, where. Yes, because they're all Maester so and so. Yeah, and so a bunch of them have a bunch of maesters around, and I don't actually. Mm-hmm. What are the maesters? What are they? Okay, so so to give you some explanation on the maesters, we do get like explanations on like how the maesters like work. Is it like a religious thing or something? No, they're essentially just like the academics of the world. Oh, I had a completely incorrect. Yeah, they're not so much religious. They're like, so the maesters, there's like a place that the maesters like study at, and they forge their maesters chains, their chains of various metal, and it'll be explained, or maybe has been said, each different metal in their chain represents a different sort of like thing that they've learned.
Got you, like subject.
Yes.
Speciality.
Yep. So it's like the maesters, they know how to read and write.
Got you.
They act as like, they basically act as like advisors for a lot of the lords around here.
And like scribes almost?
Yeah, they're sort of like scribes, and they know like medicine. They're like scribes and doctors and historians and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So they're like, they're very, like, the Aes Sedai have kind of a religious thing going on.
Yeah.
In some ways, but they're very Aes Sedai in the sense of they're like, because also they do also study like there is a thing for like knowing magic.
Right.
We'll get to it later, but like the chain link that's Valyrian steel. There's a Valyrian steel chain link, and that signifies like magic, studying magic. And we'll get into sort of like some more details on that later. But like they sort of study things, but we do get there's this sense in the world that magic is gone.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like, oh, all the talk about these mythical things, they're all from the past.
Right.
And that stuff doesn't exist anymore. And we'll get a little bit later in this section, Dany talking about that too.
Right.
So it's like, the maesters technically study magic, but in the sense of they're like, well, but that's like...
Like, as a history.
As like a history. And so it's like, they are kind of, they're like the Aes Sedai, but without magic.
Got you, yeah.
Right, like, you know, there's like the different colors and stuff, and there's like different specialties that like maesters can like sort of study in.
Okay.
But they're just sort of like an organization devoted to learning and scholarship, and they act as like advisors and scribes and healers.
Does the organization itself like have its own goals, or is it mainly just to have like a?
There are theories about that.
Okay.
So those are good questions.
Okay. I didn't think that they were really answerable.
Right.
But like,
yeah, it's like what we know about the maesters is that I believe they tend to wear gray. They have their chains made of different metals, and they know how to read and write and perform medicine and stuff, and that's sort of their main thing that they do for like the nobility. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got that from the show or anything either. Like I don't think that I ever picked up any of the maester stuff. Yes,
and Pycelle, who gets mentioned here, he's the Grand Maester. He's the Amerlin seat of their organization, and he serves on like the King's Council.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah. That's and I don't think that's been fully explicitly stated either, but that's just sort of like so that you're not just like, what is any of this? Because it's not, because like, you know, the maesters are like important and around, but that kind of like just sort of general world information is not like spoilers or anything.
We closed the curtains, so they supposedly couldn't see outside to bark at the squirrels,
but
they
it doesn't stop
curtains.
them. Yeah, they just like shift it with their nose and look out. I'm tempted to just have like, to just leave the door open and just let them come in and out as they want, so they're not just like...
I can do that for now.
Yeah, bugging us with with barking to come in and out all the time. Yeah, so that's basically what the maesters are. Yeah, so we get Maester Pycelle name dropped in there because we're talking about like the council and stuff. Oh yes. Varys is like, I wonder if we might trouble you to show us the dagger. Catelyn Stark stared at the eunuch in stunned disbelief. He was a spider, she thought wildly. An enchanter, or worse. What have you done to Sir Roderick? Littlefinger was lost. What dagger are we talking about? Who is Sir Roderick? So we kind of see that, like, Littlefinger knows a lot, big, schemy guy, but Varys is specifically... Information. He's the master of whispers for the king. He runs the spy network, so he knows everything that's going on. Like, as soon as it's happening in the city, he knows about it. Yeah. And we're sort of getting, like, a bit of that. Yeah, he visited with Sir Aaron in the armory. They talked about a certain dagger. They're still... then they went back to the tavern. They're still drinking in the common room. Sir Roderick was very distressed to find you are gone. How could you know all this? The whisperings of little birds. Yeah. And so then shows him the dagger. Littlefinger takes it, it's looking at it, and then he's like, yeah, you should have come to me about this. I know whose dagger this is. It's mine. It's my dagger. What? Yeah, I bet this dagger during a tourney. I bet on Sir Jaime Lannister, because everyone was betting on Sir Jaime Lannister during the joust, but he got beaten in the joust by Sir Loras Tyrell. And so I lost the dagger to Tyrion Lannister. So it's Tyrion's dagger now. Yep. And and that's the end of it. That's the end of the chapter. Who? The Imp, Tyrion Lannister. So in this chapter we get the like dun dun dun. Yeah. It's Tyrion's dagger, but also Petyr Baelish's dagger. So it's like the implication we're now suspicious of Tyrion for being the one who tried to get Bran killed. Yeah,
which I don't think that's the case. I think it's the others using his thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, because given what we know about them and Tyrion, it seems like unlikely that it would be Tyrion, and more likely that it would be like one of his siblings. The idea that like Cersei or Jaime would steal his dagger to frame him or whatever, since they're the ones who have something to lose with Bran actually waking up, it would make sense that it would be them, not Tyrion. But yep. So Catelyn's now like has a lead, and whether or not it's a good lead, we'll find out. Anything about this chapter you want to? Yeah, just sort of more developing the because like even like 175 pages in or whatever, we're like meeting new characters and getting introduced to like King's Landing as a place and Varys and Littlefinger and whatnot, and like we're still developing the plot, but like a lot of this like early like a lot of like how far would you say we are, like a quarter? Maybe.
I'd say maybe.
Yeah, we're maybe like a quarter or something of the way through, and it's like we are still always like progressing the plot, but there's a lot of just like introducing things. Yeah. There's like so much world to set up and so many fucking named characters that each chapter is kind of like, and here's all the new information we have, and and there's not a lot of sort of like analysis beyond just like we met a bunch of new people.
Yeah, we got some people.
Yeah, so that's Catelyn's chapter. And then we go see Jon. And this is Jon Jon III? Yeah. Third Jon. And Jon he's up at the wall. He's practicing sword fighting and stuff in the yard. And he is beating everyone.
Yeah.
He beats everyone when sword fighting in the yard because he
has training.
He has training. He's the only one of these people who has like any sort of like actual training because he was raised in a castle as a little lordling. Yeah. Yeah. So he is not popular.
Yeah, he's like resented by a lot of the others.
They resent him, and he resents them back because he's like, it's like, I'm doing awesome. What's the problem?
Yeah. Why aren't you?
Why aren't you? And like, he beats them up in the yard during practice, and we get introduced to, some names get thrown around. There's Sir Alliser Thorne. He's the guy, like, teaching them how to fight and stuff. And he is just kind of, like, mean. Yeah. Just kind of a mean guy. Yeah. A lot of the folks at the wall are mean. Yeah. In part because, like, this is a penal colony, essentially. Right. A lot of the folks here, like, you can sign up. Yeah. You can volunteer, but a lot of these people are sent here as prisoners. Right, so a lot of folks here are very rough around the edges and mean and such. But we also get Gren. Gren's the guy that he was sort of beating up in the original, in like the opening scene. Yeah. He's just like a big strong guy. And he ends up like cornering Jon with some other dudes to like beat him up. outside of practice and whatnot. But they get, like, interrupted, like, during that fight or whatever, by, like, the blacksmith or something, I think.
Yeah.
But also we get some interaction with, like, because, like, Tyrion's also there.
Right.
It's like, Jon's up there trying to, like, be a member of the Night's Watch, and Tyrion's just
like,
there.
Around, yeah.
He's just around, fucking around. He's just like, I just came here to visit.
Yep.
and so they're like, oh, please, just chill and hang out.
Yep.
Yeah. And, there was scant warmth to be found in Castle Black, which is... Because it's like, there's the wall, and the wall is huge and made of ice, and there's, like, a castle, like, at the base of the wall. And there's forts sort of all along the base of the wall.
Right. And they're, like, all basically, like, empty.
Yeah.
Or, like, way undermanned.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them are empty.
Like, some of them, like, most of them are empty. The only ones that are actually, like, manned at this point
like the 3 or whatever?
are, like, 3 of them. Castle Black, and then there's, like... the Shadow Fort and Eastwatch or something like that.
Yeah, and they have like 100 or so people at like each of those. And like 1,000 at here or something.
Yeah, something like that. Like, I don't think it's even quite 1,000 here. But I've underlined a bajillion things. But yeah, no, Jon's brooding about like how shit kind of sucks up here, and he's like, no one prepared me for this except Tyrion. Tyrion was the only one who was like, and it's like, well, Benjen kind of did try and tell you back at the thing, and you didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And also Benjen is being sent out.
Right.
Out ranging.
And he wanted to go with...
He wanted to go with him, and Benjen was like, no.
Yeah.
Of course not. And he's like, but I'm like, almost fully grown. And it's like, no, you're not. Yeah. And you need to stay here, and you need to stop asking.
Yeah.
And it's like, my uncle is like, I'm not, he's like, now, it's like, I love your father.
Right.
Because he's my, but like, these are my brothers now, and if you're gonna be here, then you gotta like be a part of it, and you don't get favoritism from me. And so Jon's upset about that, and then Benjen goes off on his ranging, and has yet to come back. Yeah, because it was pretty early on in Jon being there that he left, and he hasn't
been back since.
Yes, and of course, right before he leaves, he says, "We'll speak when I return."
Right. Which is typical.
which is like, of course, and like. The amount of theories. What is he gonna talk about? What is he gonna say?
Yeah.
It's just, and he's like, the only person who really laid it out for me was Tyrion.
Because he like is a bit upset at Ned for it too.
Yes, he's mad at Ned for sort of like not telling him that it was going to be like this, despite probably knowing, considering Ned would know. His brother's in the Night's Watch, and he's Lord of Winterfell, which actually is one of the few places that actually has any sort of like relationship with the Night's Watch, right? Because they're the closest to it. And he's missing his family. He's missing Rickon and Robb and Bran and all that, but he especially misses Arya. Yeah. He missed her even more than Robb, skinny little thing that she was, all scraped knees and tangled hair and torn clothes, so fierce and willful. And he would give anything to be with her now, to muss her hair once more and watch her make a face, to hear her finish a sentence with him. And and then that's when they are like, hey, we're gonna beat you up for what you did. Yeah. And then Donal Noye, Noye, the yard is for fighting. Keep your quarrel out of my armory, or I'll make them my quarrels. Yeah. Careful. Just playing around with stuff on the table. He broke my wrist. A bruise. Perhaps a sprain. Yeah. That's... Gren was saying that, like, Jon broke his wrist during training and whatnot. It's like, no, he didn't. It hurts.
It hurts, but it's all... You're fine.
Maester Aemon will give you a salve. Go with him. Yeah, Maester Aemon. Another Maester. He's really old and up here on the wall.
Right, he's like the like blind or almost blind.
Yeah, he's like blind and old and just been living up here. And then they're talking. Yeah, because he's talking with Donal, I believe. who's kind of giving him a little bit of a talking to.
Yeah. Like, look, they weren't trained. Like, that's why you're beating them. Like, do you feel good about it?
Right. Yep. Because they have a whole thing where it's like they they called my mother a whore. Words won't make your mother a whore. She was what she was, and nothing Toad says can change that. We have men on the wall whose mothers were whores.
Yeah.
Yeah, that boy Jaren is a Septon's get, and Cotter Pike is the baseborn son of a tavern wench. Now he commands Eastwatch by the sea. So it's like, you can't get, like, upset about all these things, and you can't have your sort of, like, little, boo-hoo, I'm a bastard shit over here.
Yeah, people won't,
People aren't gonna put up with it.
Yeah,
I hate it here. It's too cold. It's cold. Yes, cold and hard and mean, that's the wall. And I have like a big long section here. Oh yeah, they're just talking about like who Donald is. Yeah, because it's like, the being out here is for life, and Jon's thinking about that, and it's like, yeah, well, Donald's already had like a life.
Yeah, and he's like, I haven't.
And I haven't. And it's like, yeah, dude, that's what fucking Benjen was trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And he's only just now sort of like coming to terms with it. They hate me because I'm better than they are. No, they hate you because you act like you're better than they are. You're a Snow, not a Stark. You're a bastard and a bully. A bully? They were the ones who came after me. 4 of them. 4 that you've humiliated in the yard. 4 who are probably afraid of you. I've watched you fight. It's not training with you. Put a good edge on your sword and they'd be dead meat. You know it. I know it. They know it. You leave them nothing. You shame them. Does that make you feel proud?
Yeah.
And he sort of like realizes, like, yeah, you're the only person here who has training.
Yeah.
They're trying to learn how to fight, and instead of actually like helping them learn, you're just beating the shit out of them, and to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
And Jon's like, he's like defensive right now, but like
but
he's like
it's sinking in, but he's still
he's young and he's hot-headed and defensive, but there's a part of him that's like, no, so what he's saying is true. Yeah, I promise not 1 in 20 was ever rich enough to own a real sword. So how do you like the taste of your victories now, Lord Snow? Yeah, don't call me that, Jon said sharply, but the force had gone out of his anger. Suddenly he felt ashamed and guilty. I didn't think. Best you start thinking. Yeah, that or sleep with a dagger by your bed. Now go. It's like, you gotta, like, work with these people. You can't, because Jon views this as like a way for him to like gain honor in the world. Yeah. He's looking to sort of rise up and lift himself up. And it's like, you need to not be thinking that way. You need to be like, these are supposed to be your brothers in arms. You're supposed to be working with them, not just trying to like
speed by them,
push
them down,
and just sort of get yours.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yep. And then we get the wall, blazing blue and crystalline in the sunlight. Centuries of windblown dirt covering it like a film. But when the sun caught it fair on a bright day, it shone, alive with light, a colossal blue-white cliff that filled half the sky. The largest structure ever built by the hands of man. And people have talked about how too big the wall is. They're like, no, there's no fucking way. The humans could build a wall that big. And it's like, yeah, it's fantasy. Yeah. There's probably magic involved. There's, like, for sure magic involved, But, and we were like, yeah, but, like, how much magic? But, like, how much magic was involved? And it's like, is that a good question to be asking about Game of Thrones? It's always a bit wibbly.
Yeah.
This is the end of the world. Yeah.
It's the end
of the world as we know it. Yep. Almost 700 feet high, 3 times the height of the tallest tower in the stronghold it sheltered. The top was wide enough for a dozen armored knights to stand abreast. So, 700 feet high, and then, like, 700 feet tie. A tie that's 700 feet long.
That's a long tie.
That's a long tie. And, like, wide as well. It's like, you fit a dozen people.
Who's wearing that tie?
Giants, presumably. I do believe that one of old Nan's stories is that the whole world is within the eye of a blue-eyed giant. Yeah. So maybe that's who's wearing the tie.
Got you.
Yeah. makes you wonder what lies beyond. Tyrion pops up, like, hey, Jon, how you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tyrion's doing well because he's an honored guest, so he's he gets all the nice shit. The Rangers say it's just woods and mountains and frozen lakes, lots of snow and ice. And the Grumpkins and the Snarks. And he's calling him Lord Snow, which Jon doesn't like.
Right.
Would you rather be called the Imp? Let them see that their words can cut you, and you'll never be free of the mockery. If they want to give you a name, take it, make it your own. Then they can't hurt you with it anymore. Which...
I think it's a very, known Game of Thrones quote.
Yes, it's like that. That's definitely it's a big part of the whole who Tyrion is, especially at this point in time. Yep. And Jon is sleeping in one of the sort of abandoned crumbling towers.
Right, yeah, because they could choose wherever.
Yeah, it's no one cares where you sleep. Most of the old keeps are empty. You can pick any cell you want. Once Castle Black had housed 5,000 fighting men, now it's home to a tenth of that number, and parts of it were falling into ruin. And be sure to tell your father to arrest more stonemasons before your tower collapses. So, just some fun little back and forth. We find out that Benjen... He's being sent out on this ranging specifically to go find...
Yeah, the guy we saw from the prologue.
Who got all fucked up. Yeah. So it's he's being specifically sent to where we know a bunch of White Walker bullshit was happening. Yeah. So it's we kind of know that it's more dangerous than they sort of think it is. Because they're just he knows the haunted forest better than anyone.
Right.
Yeah. And then Jon gets called to the Lord Commander's office.
Yeah, and he thinks it's his uncle, but it's Bran.
But it's about Bran. There's word about Bran that he's woken up and he's fine. And they're he's oh, I'm so fucking relieved. And and
he runs around telling everyone, which is cute.
Yep, he runs around telling everyone. He picks up Tyrion and swings him around. And Tyrion's whoa, what the fuck?
But we didn't get to read the letter, but he showed it to Tyrion.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so we don't get to read the letter, but we just sort of get generally that it's Bran's woken up. Because
he doesn't really fully read it. He his eyes kind of glaze over until he looks what he sees what he is looking for.
That's true. And the Lord Commander, by the way, is Jeor Mormont. Jeor. And,
oh, yeah, I recognize that name, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because Mormont is the guy who is with Dany right now. The knight who's with Dany is Jorah Mormont, who's his,
Who's this, then? Wait.
Jeor Mormont, because he makes a mention of it, he's a gruff old man with an immense bald head and a shaggy gray beard. He had a raven on his arm, and he was feeding it kernels of corn.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about the bird.
Yep, and the raven's corn, it muttered in a raucous voice. Corn, corn! And it's always just, repeating random words like that. Yeah, I think it's in a later section that he talks about his, more exact relationship to Jorah. But yeah, Jorah Mormont is part of that same family.
Got you.
So Jeor is Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. He's up here, but...
Right, that's why he's up here, right? Or something, they talk about it?
He's there because of Jorah's thing?
Maybe not. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't
remember.
I don't remember exactly, but he's just another Mormont, like how Jorah's a Mormont. Yeah, because he's just he's alive, but he can't walk, and Jon's I don't give a shit that he's, I'm just glad that he's alive. And he's my brother's going to live. And then, the Raven's live! Yeah, Bran's going to live. Here, eat it. And then then now that Jon's feeling better, he goes and he apologizes to Gran. Yeah. Sorry about your wrist. Rob used the same move on me once, only with a wooden blade. It hurt like 7 hells, but yours must have been worse. Look, if you want, I can show you how to defend that. And then Alistair's I'd have an easier time teaching a wolf to juggle than you will training this Aurochs, talking about Gran. I'll take that wager, Sir Alistair. I'd love to see Ghost juggle. And then Tyrion laughs, and a bunch of the other laugh, and then Alistair goes away. Like, that was a grievous error, Lord Snow. He said at last in the acid tones of an enemy. So he's made made an enemy of his, teacher.
But the others like him.
He's apologized and is going to try and actually do better by them.
Yeah.
And now that he's, had a stern talking to, and also now that he's not so worried about Bran.
He deserves to be a little upset for being uprooted and all this shit.
Yeah, he's had a lot going on, and he's finally gotten a little bit of good news. Yeah. So, and that's the end of the Jon chapter.
Yeah, he's allowed to almost break someone's wrist.
Yeah, he's allowed to almost break someone's wrist, just a little bit, just a little, Yeah. So that's that. Anything? Yeah. Got anything else about it? All right. And now we're back with Ned. And this is the fourth. This is Eddard IV. Yep. And Ned's now finally made it to King's Landing.
Yeah.
And he's all tired and shit.
Yep.
The King's steward told him that Grand Maester Pycelle had convened an urgent meeting of the Small Council. The honor of the Hand's presence was requested as soon as was convenient. It will be convenient on the morrow. Yeah. I shall give the council your regrets. No, I'll see them.
Yeah.
He's tired and he's mad because the trip sucked.
Yeah.
The trip sucked. Really bad shit happened, and he's like, it's been awful because Sansa blames Arya, and Arya is just like, feels awful about everything. She feels like it's her fault. She feels like it's her fault, and, they don't want to talk to each other, and he's like, and I had a part in this, So, but he's gonna go have his little meeting. Arya is not to go exploring.
Yeah.
We just get more like random place names. Norvos, Qohor, Lys. Just like, we're constantly getting just a little... He loves to just sprinkle in little, like, place names from around the world. Apparently in the world book, The World of Ice and Fire, like, we get names for some places, like, out east that are, like, Lovecraft references. And he was like, that was just to fill out the map. And then, like, in True Detective or something, they, like, make reference to one of these Lovecraft things that was, like, lesser known, but he used as, like, a name for one of these places. Like, and so now suddenly everyone knows it. Yeah. Everyone knows it.
Like, look, it was obscure.
It was obscure when I did it. Yeah. And, Ned's meeting the members of the council. He likes Varys the least. Lord Renly's there. Littlefinger's there. Renly had been a boy of 8 when Robert won the throne, but he had grown into a man so like his brother that Ned found it disconcerting. Whenever he saw him, it was as if the years had slipped away and Robert stood before him, fresh from his victory on the Trident. You must forgive me, for sometimes you look like the very image of your brother. A poor copy, though much better dressed, Littlefinger quipped. So, yeah, because that was some of the stuff that I was talking about before, that Renly just looks exactly like Robert. Yeah, there are worse crimes. Yep, and so Ned's meeting Littlefinger, no doubt.
Yeah, he doesn't like him.
Yeah.
And, like, tells him that.
Yes.
It's, like, very clear, and he's like...
Yeah, because, at first, he's just like, I understand that you knew my brother Brandon as well, rather too well. I still carry a token of his esteem. Did Brandon speak of me? Often, and with some heat. Yeah, he had no patience for this game they played with, this dueling with swords. Yeah, and he was just like, stop talking to me.
Yeah.
And then Maester Pycelle's there. And he's a real old guy. Wispy strands of white hair, fringe from his bald dome, and a kindly face. His maester's collar was no simple metal choker, such as Lewin wore, but 24 heavy chains wound together into a ponderous metal necklace that covered him from throat to breast. The links were forged of every metal known to man: black iron, red gold, bright copper, dull lead, steel and tin and pale silver, brass and bronze and platinum, garnets and amethysts and black pearls adorned the metalwork, and here and there an emerald or ruby. So he's just like his crazy chain. because he's the Grand Maester. He knows all the things. He's studied all the stuff that they study. Yeah, and it's like, all right, yeah, we are the King's Hand. We serve at your pleasure, Lord Stark. And he's like, shouldn't we wait for Robert?
Right.
And Varys is like, oh, you know, he is being sort of polite about it, but Renly, because he's his brother, is like...
he's not coming.
He's not coming. All this business of coin and crops and justice bores my royal brother to tears, so it falls on us to govern the realm. He sends us a command from time to time. This morning, he commanded me to ride ahead with all haste and ask Grandmaster Pycelle to convene this council at once. He has an urgent task for us. And the urgent task is a tourney.
Yeah.
We're going to have a big tourney, a big celebration that Ned's the king now. Or not the king, but...
yeah, basically.
The hand of the king. Basically the king, except for in all the ways that I want to be king. Yeah. In which case you're not the king, and don't you forget it.
Yeah.
And it's like, how much? 40,000 gold dragons to the champion, 20,000 to the man who comes second, another 20 to the winner of the melee, and 10,000 to the victor of the archery competition. 90,000 gold pieces, Littlefinger sighed, and we must not neglect the other costs. Will the treasury bear the expense? What treasury is that? Spare me the foolishness, Maester. You know as well as I that the treasury has been empty for years. I shall have to borrow the money. No doubt the Lannisters will be accommodating. We owe Lord Tywin 3 million dragons at present. What matter another 100,000? Ned was stunned. Are you claiming that the crown is 3 million gold pieces in debt? The crown is more than 6 million gold pieces in debt, Lord Stark. The Lannisters are the biggest part of it, but then also... Lord Tyrell and the Iron Bank of Bravos, and several Tyroshi trading cartels.
And of course, Robert's like, oh, it's the Lannisters, it's my wife, whatever. It doesn't matter, I can borrow from them. They won't care. It doesn't... Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, it's just like... It's like... The Lannisters are really kind of the power behind the throne, like in a lot of ways, when it comes right down to it.
I mean, they're the power, they're the money, they're the, you know.
Oh, yeah, and then it's like, oh, and then I'm just going to give Jaime Lannister control of this other thing, and so then it's just a whole deal. It's like you can just see how the Lannisters are sort of like all over this.
Yeah.
Ned was aghast. Aerys Targaryen left a treasury flowing with gold. How could you let this happen? Littlefinger gave a shrug. The master of coin finds the money, the king in the hand spend it. Lord Aaron was a prudent man, but I fear his grace does not always listen to wise counsel.
Yeah.
Because Jon was like, how could, Lord Aaron let this happen? It's like, well,
Yeah.
Robert doesn't listen. He loves having feasts and tournaments, and he hates thinking about money.
I mean, how are you about to let this tournament happen? You are. It's the same reason. It's the exact same thing.
It's the exact same thing. And... Ned's getting mad.
Also, I forgot about the tournament.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as he mentioned it, I'm like, right, most of the plot of this book.
Yes. Has to do with, the tournament and stuff.
I couldn't remember
Yep.
what was happening, like King's Landing in this. Right. That.
Yep. Yeah, and Ned's... He's not happy. He's annoyed. He's like, okay, well, we'll end this for today and resume another time.
Yeah, he's like, I'm tired. Let me sleep.
Yep. And he's not happy. He's thinking back on how shitty the journey here was. Sansa cried herself to sleep. Arya brooded silently all day long, and Eddard dreamed of a frozen hell reserved for the Starks of Winterfell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's heading off to his chambers, and Littlefinger's like, no, follow me.
Right. And then he's, super suspicious, and leads him over all this stuff.
Yep, leads him all over the place. And there's just, some funny little things. We're outside the castle. You're a hard man to fool, Stark. Was it the sun that gave it away, or the sky? Follow me. And he leads him. He's like, I'm gonna bring you to your wife. Your wife's here. And he's like, what? And
right, it's like, what do you mean?
What do you mean? Then he brings him to a brothel, and he's like, your wife is inside. That was the final insult. Brandon was too kind to you, Ned said as he slammed the small man back against the wall and shoved his dagger up under the little pointed chin beard. My lord, no! He speaks the truth! Sir Roderick?
Right.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, better place to hide her. No one's looking for Catelyn Tully in a whorehouse.
Yep.
And then whenever they see each other, inside Catelyn was waiting. She cried out when she saw him, ran to him, and embraced him fiercely. My lady. I was like, oh, very good. You recognize her. Yep, and they're happy to see each other. And it's talking about catching up, and he's worried, of course, that Bran's dead, but it's like no, Bran's alive, and getting him caught up with about the knife and Tyrion and all that. And also Littlefinger owns this brothel,
right,
which is why he's like hiding her there. And Littlefinger's like, the imp would never have acted alone. If the queen had a role in this, or God forbid the king himself, no, I will not believe that, because Ned doesn't want to.
Yeah.
He remembered Robert's talk of sending hired knives after the Targaryen princess. He remembered Rhaegar's infant son, the red ruin of his skull, and the way the king had turned away, as he had turned away in Daenerys' audience hall not so long ago. Talking about he could still hear Sansa's pleading, as Lyanna had pleaded once, which is just like, he'll just like throw in these random little things that remind him of Lyanna, and without ever any like extra context, and it's like watching Sanderson's lectures.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I do that thing where it's like, can't think about that, right?
Yeah.
It's like sometimes...
And like when a character has like information that you don't want to tell the reader yet, or whatever, and you just haven't like, not thinking about it yet.
Yep, so he'll just every now and then something just remind him of Lyanna, and then he's just not going to think about it. For the audience's, quote, benefit, Yes, our good Robert is practiced at closing his eyes to things he would rather not see. Yep. The imp will no doubt swear that the blade was lost or stolen while he was at Winterfell. And with his hireling dead, who is there to give him the lie? My counsel is to drop it in the river and forget that it was ever forged. And Littlefinger's like, just drop it. It's best not to think about it. To think about it and to worry about it too much, especially if you're like worried that the queen or the king is involved. That's treason. Yeah. And so best to just let it go. But he's like, no, I can't just fucking let it go. Yes, if you're... So Littlefinger's like, well, I don't want any part of this. And it's like, well, I wouldn't want you to be a part of this. But he's like, I will try and keep you alive for her sake. Peter's like, all right, I'll help you because I know your wife and all that, and she needs to go back home because it could be dangerous for her here. So it's like, you should go back home to Winterfell, and I'll help. And I'll help you, do all this stuff. Yeah. It's, dangerous, but I'll try and keep you alive and keep you from, fucking getting murdered, investigating all this stuff. And she had talked to... Yeah, because I had told Petyr our suspicions about Jon Arryn's death. He has promised to help you find the truth. Yes, it would not be the first time Ned had been forced to make common cause with a man he despised. And she's like, be careful about Varys. And Littlefinger's like, oh, I can handle Varys. And, and so it's like, you gotta go back home. And then Catelyn's like, I just want to have a little bit of, us to have a little bit of alone time. And Peter's making jokes about it because they're in a brothel. You normally have to pay for that sort of thing around here. Yes, once you're home, send word to Helman Talhart and Galbert Glover under my seal. They're to raise 100 bowmen each and fortify Moat Cailin. 200 determined archers can hold the neck against any army. Instruct Lord Manderley that he is to strengthen and repair all of his defenses at White Harbor, and see that they are well manned, and from this day on, I want a careful watch kept over Theon Greyjoy. If there is war, we shall have sore need of his father's fleet. War? It will not come to that, Ned promised her, praying it was true. Yeah, so he's we get a bunch of names of the sort of like houses that are under the Starks that are to be like rallied. Right. And we get reference to Moat Cailin, which comes up all the fucking time. Anytime there's some fucking tactical shit going on, it's always Moat Cailin. Gotcha. And I just remember reading and being like, yeah. And it's because if you look on the map, it's right there, and so it's like a river like comes in from there, so it's like this is kind of like a little choke point, sort of like leading up into the north.
Got you.
And there's White Harbor, where he was talking about like have the ships ready, so it's like trying to sort of fortify in case a war breaks out with like the Lannisters over all this stuff. And yeah, the Lannisters are merciless in the face of weakness. But they would not dare attack the north without all the power of the realm behind them, and that they shall not have. I must play out this fool's masquerade as if nothing is amiss. If I find proof that the Lannisters murdered Jon Arryn, all justice flows from the king, he told her. When I know the truth, I must go to Robert and pray that he is the man I think he is, he finished silently, and not the man I fear he has become.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the chapter. And it's like, reading that, it's like, Ned.
Right.
You've seen, like, first, and even, like, back then, because he has these thoughts about, like, when they killed the little, like, baby Targaryen, and you know, he turned away, like he did, you know, on the road about the direwolf. It's like, he's kind of always been like this. He
just wants to think better of him.
He just wants to think better of him. It's like, you know, you guys were friends when there wasn't a war going on. And then the war happened, and it caused a lot of strain between you, actually. But then your sister died, and you both, you know, you love your sister because she's your sister, and he loved your sister because of that whole thing. And so it's like you kind of rebonded over that, and then he was the king, and things were peaceful again. But now...
And you didn't see him.
And you didn't see him. He was just gone for a long while. So it's like, yeah, he's kind of always been like this. It's just, you know, you've only been exposed to so much of it, and now you have to kind of reckon with the man he really is.
Right.
You know, it's not just who he was and who he has become. I think he's just kind of always been like this.
And he wants to think of, like, oh, we put a good king on the throne. And I think like, if we didn't put a good king on the throne, like, what does that say about...
What does that say about us and what we were doing? Yeah, because it's like, because we know that, like, the king before was, you know, the Mad King, and he was shitty, but it's like, what is this? How much better is this? You know? Yep. Yeah. And that's one of the big sort of things about Game of Thrones is, like, the nature of power.
Yeah.
And, you know, we usurped the Mad King, so everything's good now, right?
Right.
And it's like, no, you just replaced him with another king who's maybe also not so great.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the sort of interesting things about the series that is sort of trying to contend with. Yep, and so that's that chapter. Got anything else? Alrighty, and now we're on to Tyrion. Another Tyrion chapter, and this is Tyrion III. This is our third Tyrion chapter, and he's still up at the wall.
Yeah.
And he's hanging out with Lord Mormont, Lord Commander, because he's, you know, their guests and whatnot. And Mormont's like, you're a pretty cool guy, Tyrion.
Yeah.
You're a cunning man. We have need for men of your sort on the wall. And, you know, he's
like, I like my luxuries too much.
I like my luxuries too much. I shall scour the Seven Kingdoms for dwarfs and ship them all to you, Lord Mormont. And Alistair Thorne is like, Lannister mocks us. Only you, Sir Alistair. And everyone's a little bit nervous about that. Yes, come and make your japes with steel in your hand. Tyrion looked pointedly at his right hand. Why, I have steel in my hand, Sir Alistair, although it appears to be a crab fork. Shall we duel? He hopped up on his chair and began poking at Thorne's chest with a tiny fork. Roars of laughter filled the room. Even the raven joined in, cawing loudly from above the window. Duel! 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 Yeah, and then Alistair gets up and walks out, because he's mad.
Yeah.
And, Lord Mormont's like, you do mock us and our noble purpose here. We all need to be mocked from time to time, Lord Mormont, lest we start to take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
because he doesn't quite believe in, like, the wall's purpose and stuff, like, throughout this chapter. And...
Right. He's not so, like, convinced by it.
Yeah.
And also it's one of those things where he's like, oh, we all need to be mocked from time to time, but we see earlier, like, much earlier in the previous Tyrion chapter with Jon, that when Jon, like, mocks him and stuff, it really, like, gets to him.
Yeah.
So it's like Tyrion says that, but it's more to justify his own mocking than because he actually, like, sort of believes it.
Yeah.
I feel, because...
And to deal with, like...
Yeah, it's more to, like, cope.
Yeah.
Tyrion's constantly just sort of coping.
Right.
With all the shit that he gets put up with. But also, it's like, he lives a life of luxury, but also, you know...
I mean, it's similar to... like Jon, because like they're kind of put together.
They are
for that reason, like in like different ways. Like Jon grew up privileged with the like in the castle, and he's like kind of seeing all these people who didn't get training and all of that. And then we have Tyrion, who gets like you know, his height and all of that, and
his deformity and all that, you know, and we see
but
them.
Then he still grew up very
right.
Like,
he still grew up the son of like the most powerful royal family like in the kingdom, outside of like literally the king's family, which it's also the queen's family. Like, you know. So yeah, it's pretty. And we see them together again in this chapter. They end up on like Tyrion like goes up on top of the wall. And
because he's gonna head home, and because he's like cold.
He's like, I'm about ready to head home, but
so he's like, well, this is my last chance to see the top of the wall, so I'll do that.
But before that though, back when we were still with Mormont and whatnot, we get a little bit of Aemon. Aemon, Mr.
The old.
Yeah, he's I think that Lord Tyrion is quite a large man, Maester Aemon said from the far end of the table. He spoke softly, yet the high officers of the Night's Watch all fell quiet, the better to hear what the ancient had to say. I think he is a giant come among us, here at the end of the world. Tyrion answered gently. I've been called many things, my lord, but giant is seldom one of them. Nonetheless, Maester Aemon said, as his clouded, milk-white eyes moved to Tyrion's face, I think it is true. For once, Tyrion Lannister found himself at a loss for words. He could only bow his head politely and say, You are too kind, Maester Aemon. He's just genuinely kind of like a sweet old man. Shrunken beneath the weight of 100 years, so his maester's collar, with its links of many metals, hung loose around his throat. I have been called many things, my lord, but kind is seldom one of them. This time Tyrion himself led the laughter. So yeah, he's just like 100 years old, it would seem. He's like one of the like oldest people sort of like in the story. Him, an old man. Why must they bark so? So much barking.
They've been crazy.
They have been crazy today. And yesterday.
And every day.
That's true. When aren't they?
The dogs have been crazy today.
Yeah, every day the dogs are crazy, and we're like, wow, they're so crazy today. But yes, I think this is where we get Mormont being like, talking about his family. My sister Mage, Maege, rules Bear Island now since my son's dishonor. I have nieces I have never even seen. Yeah, so it was his son. His son, Jorah.
Got you.
Is the one who was doing slave trading, and he was selling some prisoners off to slavery, and so he fled, and now Mage Mormont is in charge, and we have not met Mage Mormont, but I will say she's great.
All right.
We will see her eventually, a little bit, and she's fun. Yeah, because we like the Mormonts are like around, and they've got a lot of bear iconography. They're on Bear Island. Their house sigil is a bear. I think JR gets called Old Bear sometimes. So remember bears.
Remember bears.
And he's like, Tyrion, I have a very serious request for you. You need to go talk to everyone you know.
Yep.
You need your dad, the queen, just everyone, and be like, the Night's Watch needs more people.
Yep.
We need more people. We need more resources. I'm old, and like, the people here, not a lot of them can even read.
Yep.
A lot of them, like, who's gonna, like, lead us after this? We need people. We need more people and more resources.
Yeah, we're just dying out.
We're dying out here. And so he's like, please, just actually come out here.
And Tyrion's like, I will. I don't really believe what you're, you know, like, the kind of fervor that you have here, but, like, I'll say something.
I'll say something. And he's like, promises to say something, but inside he's like, and I will, but they're not going to do anything.
Yeah, they won't do anything.
Like, I can tell them, but, like, they're not going to, and he's like, make them. You got to make them believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, I have 3 men to defend each mile of the wall. 3 1/3, Tyrion says. Because he actually does talk about, like, the specific math. It's like, 600 here, 200 in the Shadow Tower, and even fewer at Eastwatch.
Got you. 600 here.
Yeah. The wall is 100 leagues long. I have 3 men to defend each mile of it. 3 1/3. Because Tyrion's Mr. Smarty Pants. Yeah. Mormont scarcely seemed to hear him. I sent Benjen to search for Jan Royce's son, and sort of talking about that. Oh yeah, and he's just talking about, like, you know, it used to be that, like, each, you know, Lord Commander, they would leave the Night's Watch better than they found it, but we've just been, like, crumbling and deteriorating. And so he's being very serious, and Tyrion kind of feels uncomfortable with how serious he's being. And he's like, winter's coming, you know. When I was a boy, it was said that a long summer always meant a long winter to come. This winter has lasted, this summer has lasted 9 years, Tyrion, and a 10th will soon be upon us. Think on that. When I was a boy, Tyrion replied, my wet nurse told me that one day, if men were good, the gods would give the world a summer without end. Perhaps we've been better than we thought, and the great summer is finally at hand. Yeah. Already the days grow shorter, there can be no mistake. Winter is coming. You must make them understand. Yeah, it's like, there's a lot of dangerous stuff out there. I have seen darker shapes in my dreams. In your dreams, Tyrion echoed. You know, the fisher folk near Eastwatch have glimpsed White Walkers on the shore. The fisher folk at Lannisport often glimpse Merlings. You know, so he's just, they're going back and forth. He's being dismissive. You know, and he's like, you know, the wildlings are like running. They're like coming south. They're running from something, but running from what? You know. And so that sort of is the end of their little talk, and then he goes up to the wall. To the wall. And they have like a little, like, you know, they have steps that lead up the wall. Yeah. But there's also like a like cage for like lifting supplies up, and so he just like gets in there and pulls the rope, and they like lift him up, and it's like,
oh, what are you doing in there?
What are you doing here? Like, come on, we gotta get him out. And so he's walking along, and he's looking out over, you know, the edge of the wall and seeing the great, like, expanse of stuff. The forest only comes up within a certain distance of the wall, because they, like...
Yeah, so they have, like, a killing field, so they can, like, see.
Yep. And, but, you know, at all the places that aren't manned, it's slowly encroaching back.
And this made me think of a little bit of a, like, less magical, I've forgotten what it's called now. In Wheel of Time. Yeah. The Blight.
Yes. Yes.
I was like sitting here.
Right. Yeah. Yes. It's like a less magical version of the Blight. Yes. Yeah. Because like there is like magic up in the north, there is. But it's like the White Walkers rather than like the forest itself necessarily being magic. Yeah. Yeah.
Holly, come here.
Yeah. Y'all get to stay in here for a little bit. Okay. And so he meets up with Jon, and it's like, oh, what are you doing up here? And it's like, well, I got Night Watch. Yeah. Night Watch at the Night's Watch. Yeah. And Tyrion pets Ghost. Yeah. He's like, well, is he gonna bite me? Is he gonna bite me? Not if I'm here. Has Ghost learned to juggle yet? No, but Gren held his own against Halder this morning, and Pip is no longer dropping his sword quite so often as he did. Pipar is his real name. The small boy with the large ears. So Pip and Gren end up being sort of like... Yeah. You know, Jon, we see is kind of like starting to actually like make friends with some of them and stuff. And he's talking about how he's like helping teach them. And Jon's like, hey, when you go by Winterfell, can you go and like, you know, talk to my family and stuff?
Give a message to Bran for me.
And Robb and all of them. Tell Rickon he can have all my stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's a little baby. You could do all this in a letter, Rickon can't read yet. And, it's like, help Bran. And how am I supposed to help him?
Right.
I can't, fix his legs. And it's like, yeah, but you can, like, talk to him. You talked to me when I was feeling whatever. You can talk to him and try and help him. And, he's like, I will. Because he has a sort of a soft spot for Bran and for Jon. For bastards and broken things or whatever he says. And, and then he's like, thank you, my Lord of Lannister. He pulled off his glove and offered his bare hand. Friend. Tyrion found himself oddly touched. Most of my kin are bastards, he said with a wry smile. But you're the first I've had to a friend. He pulled a glove off with his teeth and clasped Jon Snow by the hand, flesh against flesh. The boy's grip was firm and strong. So it's like they're... And it's like, we get to see them being like friends, and we get to see this sort of like nicer side of Tyrion, all while back in...
Right, that like Catelyn thinks it's Tyrion.
Catelyn thinks it's Tyrion, so it's like we're sort of seeing this kind of...
and he's about to go like help Bran.
He's about to go help Bran. He's about to go back to the castle and help Bran. Meanwhile, Catelyn's like, he tried to have Bran killed. It's there's a lot of that. A lot of this series, much like Wheel of Time, they have a very similar sort of like different people in different places having different levels of information and not being able to communicate with each other easily. It's such a big part, I feel like, of both of these. But in Wheel of Time, we end up getting fast travel.
Which makes it a lot
easier. And in Game of Thrones, at least so far, the travel is a lot more part of it, which I feel like is part of why things take so long.
Yeah.
I think things take so... Because, like, we do allide over some travel, but a lot of times it's like... It takes a while to get somewhere.
So it takes a while.
Yep. And, And Tyrion's looking out over the darkness. No fires burning anywhere, with the wind blowing and cold like a spear in his gut. Tyrion felt as though he could almost believe the talk of the others, the enemy in the night. His jokes of grumpkins and snarks no longer seemed quite so droll. And he's like, and Jon's like, my uncle's out there, and I'm worried about him. And Tyrion's just like, give him time, he'll be back. If he doesn't come back, Ghost and I will go find him. I believe you, Tyrion said, but what he thought was, and who will go find you? Yep. It's, it's rough out there. And Jon's not ready. Jon's not ready to go out there and do this kind of stuff. But he wants to. He wants to so badly. Go out there, but yeah, that's the Tyrion chapter. Any thoughts, comments, questions, answers? Alright, so we're moving on to Arya, and this is Arya 2. This is only our second Arya chapter. And Arya's doing her own sulking and brooding. She's not too happy out here at King's Landing and with her sister.
They're not getting along.
Sansa is mad at her, and also Arya's mad at herself. We see Arya have a bit of a sort of tantrum.
Breakdown.
A bit of a breakdown. She, is supposed to be eating, and she's not. And she's like, I'm going to go. And it's like, no, you have to eat. And then she's like, I don't want to. And she runs off. She goes to her room, and she, locks the door.
And she starts, pulling out needle and, messing with it. But at dinner, they're talking about, oh, there's going to be a tourney, and Sansa's like, I want to go to the tourney. And Ned's like, no.
No, it's stupid. And it's like, what, you're not going to have your own family show up at the tourney?
And then he's like, fine, they have to be there.
I guess they have to be there, but it's stupid. But Sansa wants to go and see, do all the things, have fun. And Arya's like, stupid. If you like it, then I don't like it.
Because normally, a tournament like that, I think would be totally up
Arya's
her alley. But since Sansa's excited and all of this, and it has to do with the royalty, the ladies, the all of that. She doesn't want rebels against that.
She rebels against it because the jousting and the fighting and all
that's
that
totally up her alley.
It's totally up her alley. She'd be all for it. She'd be like,
I feel like it's kind of with, like, Sansa saying that she, like, doesn't like riding and doesn't, you know, like, going and exploring, and then when she goes and does it with Joffrey, she actually does enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very much so. Because it's like, they're still so young.
Yeah.
And you really do feel it at this stage in the story. I don't care about the stupid tourney. She knew Prince Joffrey would be there, and she hated Prince Joffrey.
So it's mainly that.
It's mainly about that, really. And
she likes going to the practice yard and like watching, you know, like
and watching the fighting and stuff. So like she'd love to see like the melee and whatnot. Yep. And she's thinking, and she feels like betrayed by like Ned and everyone, and like all the adults who should have stopped that from happening, because it's like you were saying before. It's like, we're all just gonna bully this child, these children, and do all this. And this shit, like, why isn't anyone stopping? And Arya's like, why didn't anyone stop this? There was a part, I think I missed it earlier, when Ned learns about how Bran was saved by his wolf. Because Summer attacked the guy, and he's like, he was like, saved by it. What did I do by, like, you know, it's like he only lived because of that wolf, and thinking about what Jon said, one for each of them, and that he killed one of them. It's like, what have I done? Yeah. And so it's like, you know, Ned feels bad about it too. But and he thinks about how, like, you know, Ned would always be close and talk with the people around him.
Yeah. They would always, like, sit at, like, the table, have a different person there each, like, evening.
Yep. Know the men who follow you, and let them know you. Don't ask your men to die for a stranger. At Winterfell, he always had an extra seat set at his own table, and every day a different man would be asked to join him. And she's remembering all that, but now she's kind of mad at them all. One of them, was named Fat Tom, used to call her Arya Underfoot. Yeah. He said that was always where she was. She liked that a lot better than Arya Horseface. Yeah. They'd been her friend, she felt safe around them, but now she knew that was a lie. They'd let the queen kill Lady. That was terrible enough. And then the Hound found Micah. No one had raised a voice or drawn a blade or anything, not Harwin, who had always talked so bold, or Alan, who was going to be a knight, or Jory, who was captain of the guard, not even her father. And so she runs off, she locks the door, she's there with Needle, and then Ned shows up. He, like, knocks and is like, hey, we need to talk. And so then they have like a nice.
And she has Needle in her hand when he opens the door, and she's like,
It's like, I forgot about that. And it's like, where did you get this? How did you get this?
And how did I not know about it? And it was made by my forge.
And then she doesn't say that Jon gave it to him.
Yep.
Gave it to her because she's like, I can't, you know, can't betray Jon. Yeah. And he's like, don't worry about it, it's fine. And, you know, and it's like, you know, you have to be a lady. She's just, you know, Septa Mordaine's just trying to turn you into a lady. Yeah. I don't want to be a lady. I ought to snap this toy across my knee here and now and put an end to this nonsense. Needle wouldn't break. It has a name, does it? Arya, you have a wildness in you, child. The wolf blood, my father used to call it. Lyanna had a touch of it, and my brother Brandon more than a touch. It brought them both to an early grave. Arya heard sadness in his voice. Lyanna might have carried a sword if my lord father had allowed it. You remind me of her sometimes. You even look like her. Lyanna was beautiful, Arya said, startled. It was not a thing that was ever said of Arya. She was beautiful and willful and dead before her time, which that line is used a lot because I just remember all Shift X being like, what do we really know about Lyanna? We know that she was beautiful and willful and dead before her time, and that's kind of it. And it's, you know, one of the sort of like people will sort of like criticize when talking about like the women in Game of Thrones, these sort of like, you know, idolized women from the past. But I feel like we also have so many women in the present. And also we have like various sort of like, you know, men who are supposed to be heroes from the past who we also kind of hear about in like a sort of a similar way. They're sort of treated differently, but partly that's because of the weird gender things of Westeros, which are meant to reflect some of the weird gender things of like our society as well as sort of like medieval society and whatnot. So it's like, you know, there's arguments to be had in all directions. And Do you know the first thing about sword fighting? Stick them with the pointy end, she blurted out. Father snorted back laughter. That is the essence of it, I suppose.
Lyndon needs that lesson.
Yes, Lyndon does need that lesson. You're right. I've been enjoying Cradle.
It's been a good time.
Listen, you folks who are watching the Game of Thrones episodes, you should watch the Cradle episodes too.
Yep.
I understand.
Cradle is amazing. It's a great series.
I certainly understand why the Game of Thrones videos get more views because it's Game of Thrones. Yeah. More people know it than Cradle. And don't get me wrong, if you're like, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, I'm not about to say, well, Cradle.
Oh yeah, it's not
very much different, but you know, people like a multitude of things. Yep. I like both of these things, so you could like both of them too. Yep. Give the Cradle series
it's progression fantasy, and it's done super, super well.
Mm-hmm. It's like, the world of Cradle is probably just as dark, but just the tone is lighter.
The tone is way lighter, but the world is definitely dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it doesn't, like, dwell on it.
It doesn't dwell on it in the same way.
It has a bit more comedy.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Arya is feeling bad. She was like, I wanted to learn. I asked Micah to practice with me. I asked him. It was my fault. And then Ned hugs her and is like, no, sweet one. Grieve for your friend, but never blame yourself. You did not kill the butcher's boy.
Yeah.
And we sort of like see that like Arya has been feeling guilty this whole time. And is talking about all that. Yeah, and talking about how, like, you know, they had to sort of drive Nymeria off.
Yeah,
And, because it's like, we all lie, or did you truly think I'd believe that Nymeria ran off? And she was like, had to drive them off, and, you know, it was the right thing to do, wasn't it? It was right, her father said, and even the lie was not without honor. He put Needle aside when he went to Arya to embrace her. Now he took the blade up again and walked to the window, where he stood for a moment. Yeah. So, I think that's interesting. It was right, and even the lie was not without honor. It makes me think of, like, the stuff surrounding, like, Ned and Jon.
Yeah.
Because people are always like, oh, you know, making Ned forget his honor for a little bit. It's like, you know, a woman that could make Lord Ned forget his honor, but then, you know, him being like, he's so focused on honor, and he's like, even a lie can be honorable.
Yeah.
And so we sort of get a little bit of, like, you know, what's going on with Ned. And it's like, you know, him keeping secrets and not talking about, like, who the mother is and stuff. Right. It's sort of like, you know, what honorable, quote, reasons does Ned have for sort of the secrets that he's keeping and the lies that he tells and whatnot. Yep. Winter is coming, Arya whispered. The hard, cruel times, her father said. We tasted them on the Trident Child, and when Bran fell. And he's like, it's like, you know, things are tough. I understand things are tough between you and Sansa right now, but, like, summer is a time for squabbling, but winter we need to stick together. And so he's like telling her about that. It's like we need to stick together and be strong together. Yeah. And you know, because he's like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't want to scare you, but I'm not gonna lie to you. It's dangerous. It's dangerous out here. And he's like, you can keep Needle.
Yeah.
I can be strong too. I can be as strong as Rob. He held Needle out to her. Hill first. Here, go on, it's yours. I can keep it for true. Try not to stab your sister, whatever the provocation. I won't, I promise. Yeah. And then, 3 days later, excuse me, again. 3 days later, she goes to the small hall, because, you know, there's the great hall where all the big feasting happens, but even the small hall's huge.
Yeah.
The hall had been emptied.
It's like another ballroom.
Yes. Yeah, the hall had been emptied until an unfamiliar voice said, "You are late, boy." A slight man with a bald head and a great beak of a nose stepped out of the shadow, holding a pair of slender wooden swords. "Tomorrow you will be here at midday." He had an accent the lilt of the free cities, Bravos, perhaps, or Mir. "Who are you?" "I am your dancing master." Tomorrow Oh, yeah, and then he tries to throw her the sword, and she doesn't catch it. Tomorrow you will catch it. Now pick it up. It's not a stick, but a true wooden sword, complete with grip and guard. It was heavier than it looked, much heavier than needle. And then it's like, it's not a two-handed sword, it's a one-handed sword.
It's like, you gotta get up to strength.
You gotta get your strength up. She held the sword in her left hand, which I had, like, for all this time, I had forgotten that Arya's, like, left-handed.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that, like, all this time. The left is good. All is reversed. It will make your enemies more awkward. You are skinny as the shaft of a spear, do you know? That is good, too. The target is smaller. The steel must be part of your arm. Can you draw part of your arm? No. 9 years Syrio Forel was first sword of the Sea Lord of Braavos. He knows these things. Listen to him, boy. It was the third time he had called her boy. I'm a girl, Arya objected. Boy, girl, you are a sword, that is all. You are not holding a battle axe, you are holding a needle, Arya finished for him fiercely. Just so. Now we will begin the dance.
Yep.
This is the Braavos dance, the water dance. Swift and sudden, all men are made of water. Do you know this? When you pierce them, the water leaks out, and they die. Now you will try to strike me. Arya tried to strike him. She tried for 4 hours, until every muscle in her body was sore and aching. Syrio Forel clicked his teeth together, and told her what to do. The next day, their real work began. So Arya's learning sword fighting. And Ned's like, I'll get you.
It's like, all right, if you're gonna do this, you have like a legit sword.
Yeah.
Like, you need to.
You need like an actual teacher so that you know how to like use it properly and not hurt yourself.
Right.
And so we meet Syrio Forel, who is a lot of fun in the show. He definitely looks different in the show, but he is, I feel like, a very fun character. At least for, I feel like that sort of like, they get the sort of style of him.
Yeah.
His like, style of teaching and whatnot.
I forgot about him until I got to this, and I was like, oh, right.
Yep. He is the first sword of Braavos, which is a big deal. She's got quite the teacher. Yep. Anything you want to add? Any thoughts? Alrighty. Daenerys.
Guessing 3?
Yep, you are correct.
Aha.
Daenerys 3. And this is an interesting chapter for Dany, I feel.
Yeah.
She's, they're out in the Dothraki Sea, this sort of like great plains, just great grassland plains,
right,
for miles and miles and miles, all around. It's so green, you ought to see it when it blooms. All dark red flowers from horizon to horizon like a sea of blood. Come the dry season, and the world turns the color of old bronze. There are 100 kinds of grass out there. Grasses as yellow as lemon, as dark as indigo. Blue grasses and orange grasses, and grasses like rainbows. Down in the shadowlands beyond Ashai, they say there are oceans of ghost grass, taller than a man on horseback, with stalks as pale as milk glass, and glows in the dark with the spirits of the damned. The Dothraki claim that someday ghost grass will cover the entire world, and then all life will end. Yeah. I love just getting a little bit of like the Dothraki like culture, their like mythology and culture, because it's like we see them as like, we're sort of introduced to them as being very like savage and brutal, but I love getting glimpses of like sort of the culture of them. They're not just like one thing. And they're out there, they're giant like sort of caravan that the Dothraki sort of like move in, and her brother's miserable. He ought never have come. Magister Illyrio had urged him to wait in Pentos, but he was like, no, he's going to stay with Drogo until the debt had been paid. If he tries to cheat me, he will learn to his sorrow what it means to wake the dragon, Viserys had vowed, laying a hand on his borrowed sword. Illyrio had blinked at that and wished him good fortune. Illyrio's just like, you're gonna kill Khal Drogo, the man who's never lost a battle ever in his life? Right. The leader of this horde of warriors? Sure thing, buddy. You have fun with that. Because, like, Illyrio's so interesting to me in all this, because he just, like, sets this up, and then it's just like, alright, you can go get yourself killed if you want. Right. It's up to you. You can go be stupid as much as you want. And she's not a queen, a Khaleesi. The word. the word that a bunch of people named their kids. Khaleesi. It is a fun word.
It is.
So I actually have The Art of Language Invention by David J. Peterson, and he's the guy who made the Dothraki and Valyrian languages for the show. And he was like he talks in that book some about like his process, and he's like, so I was coming up with like stuff, and it's like, the thing is, with the way that I actually set things up, the way that Khaleesi's written in the books, Khaleesi. It's like, actually, the way that I set it up, it would be pronounced Khaleesi, but I know that everyone who's read the books has read it Khaleesi. Like, there's no way that a native English speaker reading the books wouldn't just read that as Khaleesi. So, like, technically, with the way that I set it up, it should be spelled, like, with an I instead of the two E's there. But it's like, but it's fine. It's just a little thing that's gonna bug me and nobody else.
And only me.
That's something that I have to think about. That and the fact that I was going through all the words that were in the book, and I was like, cool, there's no P's, but there is a P, exactly once. The word pono, which means horse, which is super important to the Dothraki people, and I forgot it. But yeah, and she's enjoying being Khaleesi.
Yeah, she's done like well with this new like everything, and her brother is not. And he's still kind of in his old clothes that are like kind of run down and stuff like that. She's in like all new clothes,
but they're all like Dothraki clothes.
Yeah.
And we get some interesting stuff. Because she was not doing well at first.
Yeah.
Things were really bad. Riding on a horse all the time left her all torn up.
Yeah.
And also, Khal Drogo. She can't like communicate with him, and he just sort of like doesn't interact with her a whole bunch.
Right.
And then just comes in, has sex with her, and leaves.
Yeah.
And it very much feels like, from his perspective, he's like, yeah, because we're married. And this is just how it goes. And she just kind of like, what am I supposed to do about this? And so she's having a horrible time. And it's like, it was real nice and gentle that first time, but then every time after that, he's just doing his thing and then leaving. And she's having an awful time, but then she has a dream.
Weird dragon dream.
She has a dragon dream, where she dreams of a dragon, but Viserys isn't there this time, and the dragon is black and red with her blood, and it like spits fire at her and like completely like burns her away. But she doesn't feel any pain at all. She's just sort of like renewed, remade, you know, destroyed and remade by the fire. And she wakes up not feeling as bad anymore. She, the next day, strangely, she did not seem to hurt quite so much. And from then on, you know,
things start getting better.
The writing gets easier. She starts to enjoy the sex a bit more. You know, she essentially like starts kind of embracing, like, I can fight against the Dothraki way, or I can sort of like come to embrace it, and she gets a lot of power out of it. She is the Khaleesi. She has a position of power, and she has a position of power over her brother now for the first time ever. And
so she doesn't have to.
She doesn't have to sort of like be so scared of him. And she like hits him. She straight up like, you know, he's mad at her. He's like, how dare you give me orders and shit.
Because she told him to like stay back like on this like ridge while she went down or whatever, and then he like followed her.
He followed her, and he's pissed, and she hits him, and then one of the other people, one of the other like Dothraki people like cracks a whip.
Because then he like starts to like come at her or whatever. And like, you woke the dragon or some shit or whatever. Supposed to go after her, and then like he gets grabbed.
It's like she had never fought back. Rage twisted his features. He would hurt her now, and badly. She knew that. Crack. The whip made a sound like thunder. The coil took Viserys around the throat, yanked him backwards. Young Jogo. He's the one who got him. And Eerie was there, and Ser Jorah, and the rest of her cause. Jogo asks if you would like him dead, Khaleesi. Eerie said, no. Jogo understood that. Quaro thinks you should take an ear to teach him respect. Tell them I do not wish him harmed. Because, like, she's being, like, sort of kinder to him than he would be to her by, like, a long shot. Yeah. I warned him that would happen, my lady, Sir Jorah said. I told him to stay on that ridge as you commanded.
Yeah, and then she makes him walk.
Yes. It's like, no, you have to walk, and that's, like, a huge... It's funny, because the Dothraki are kind of, like, in some ways, the reverse of the Aiel, because the Aiel are, like, refuse to be on horseback.
They refuse. They run.
While the Dothraki are all about horses, and being made to walk is a huge, like, dishonor.
Yeah,
you're so much lower than everyone else if you have to walk, because we're all on horseback together. If you have to walk, that's awful.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, take his horse, let my brother walk behind us. And he's mad. He turns to Jorah, hit her, Mormont, hurt her. Kill these Dothraki dogs and teach her. He shall walk, Khaleesi. Just completely ignores him. Viserys gaped at him and sat down in the dirt. He kept his silence, but he would not move. And so he's just being like
just sullen.
He's just being a petulant old child about it. And it's like, I'm just going to sit here. But of course, he has to walk eventually because it's like...
They're leaving.
And it's like, where else should he go?
Right.
I woke the dragon, didn't I? Can't wake the dead, girl. Can you wake the dead, girl? Your brother Rhaegar was the last dragon. He died on the trident. Viserys is less than the shadow of a snake. And it's like... and so then they sort of like have a bit of a conversation about sort of the reality of things. It's like, he's never gonna get back the kingdoms, is he? And it's like, is that what you think, my lady? And it's like, you know, his only knight doesn't like him.
Yep. And she's like, she's like, are the people, like, asking for him? Like, aren't they, like, you know...
Yeah, it's like the common, like, they're waiting for him. The common people pray for rain, healthy children, and a summer that never ends, Ser Jorah told her. It is no matter to them if the High Lords play their games of thrones, so long as they are left in peace. He gave a shrug. They never are.
Yeah. And
that's truly one of the, like, I feel like sort of the tragedies of Game of Thrones that we see, is the fact that, like, this scheming and conniving, it hurts innocent people so much. Right. So often innocent people get caught up in it, like Bran, even though he is, you know, a lord. Yeah. He's still just like a child. What do you pray for, Ser Jorah? Home. I pray for home too. Ser Jorah laughed. Look around you then, Khaleesi. Because she's starting to actually, like, integrate into the society, and she's never, like, had a home otherwise.
There was a squirrel that just went down that tiny branch, like that tiny bush. I'm surprised the dogs didn't start going crazy. Because it just, like, I think it went down from the roof.
Yeah, I saw it, like, shaking there. I thought it was just, like, wind or something. There was so much wind the other day. We have, like, a patio, like, table out there. It, like, flipped over. And we're like, it
fully went, like, a few feet and flipped over.
Yeah, it was, like, it's like, sitting on, like, the table part, like, down on the ground and, like, the legs sticking in. We're like, we'll just leave it there because it's probably less likely to get blown over that way if the wind's that bad.
But anyway.
But he'll never take back the Seven Kingdoms. He could not lead an army even if my lord husband gave him one. Yep, wise child. I am no child. You're 14.
Yeah.
You're 14. You're a child. And it's fucked up. And she...
I mean, to her, she's like, well, I'm basically like a queen. And like...
Yeah, and also it's like, she finally has, like, some sense of, like, control and power in her life. And she feels her dragon eggs.
They're, like, warm.
They're warm, almost hot. The sun warmed them as they rode. But one of them is black and red, like the dragon from her dreams, and so she's thinking about that. Have you ever seen a dragon? She asked as Eerie scrubbed her back and Jiqui sluiced sand from her hair. Dragons are gone, Khaleesi, Eerie said. Dead, agreed Jiqui. Long and long ago. Viserys had told her that the last Targaryen dragons had died no more than a century and a half ago during the reign of Aegon III, who was called the Dragonbane. Everywhere? Even in the east? Magic had died in the west when the doom fell on Valyria, in the lands of the long summer, and neither spell-forged steel, nor storm singers, nor dragons could hold it back. But Dany had always heard that the east was different. Spell-slingers, warlocks, and aromancers practiced their arts openly in Ashai, while shadow binders and blood mages worked terrible sorceries in the black of night. Why wouldn't there be dragons, too? No dragon. Brave men kill them. For dragon, terrible evil beasts. It is known. It is known, agreed Jiqui. I enjoy the, like, it is known.
Yeah.
It's such a fun little part of the Dothraki. They're just like, some things are known.
Yeah,
Obviously. What are you talking about? Yeah, a trader from Karth once told me that dragons came from the moon, blonde Dorea said. Dany turned her head curious. The moon? He told me the moon was an egg, Khaleesi. Once there were 2 moons in the sky, but one wandered too close to the sun and cracked from the heat. 1,000 dragons poured forth, and drank the fire of the sun. That is why dragons breathe flame. One day, the other moon will kiss the sun too, and then it will crack, and the dragons will return. The moon is no egg. Moon is God. Woman wife of sun. It is known. It is known, Jiqui agreed. I enjoy...
Yeah.
Because Dorea is from, like, a different part of the world. She's not Dothraki, and so she has, like, a different myth that she's heard. And there's so many theories about that.
Of course.
Because...
As soon as I read it, I'm like, there's theories on this.
There's theories on this, for sure. Because, I mean, like, you know, when the moon... Yeah, the moon will kiss the sun... and so people are like, there's gonna be an eclipse and shit's gonna happen. Because you can read it,
Yeah.
But I also just like, you know, it's like, no, duh, obviously the moon is the sun's wife. It is known. Yeah. And then, so they have that talk and Dany's getting all washed up. And then... That night when Khal Drogo came, Dany was waiting for him. He stood in the door of her tent and looked at her with surprise. She rose slowly, opened her sleeping silks, and let them fall to the ground. This night we must go outside, my lord, she told him, for the Dothraki believe that all things of importance in a man's life must be done beneath the open sky.
Yeah.
So they go out and they fuck.
Yep.
In front of, like, the whole the whole party.
Yep. And then George Martin, like, punches you in the face with it's her 14th birthday.
Yep.
He does this whole scene and then he's like, boom, 14th birthday.
Boom.
Like, fuck you.
Yep, truly. And it's one of those things because it's like, this is just like the first time it seems that, like, you know, because normally he just shows up and is gonna do it.
Yeah.
And she's actually like, no, we're doing this now. And he's just like, okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, he does respect her in his own way. And it's just her finally sort of like taking charge of the situation and like, you know, being the queen to his king, being the Khaleesi to his Khal, and like she's like, I can have control and power over my life again, and I can, you know,
or maybe for the first time.
Yep, for really the first time, and she gets pregnant.
Yep,
and is 14.
Yep.
And it's like, why? George, why? Why did you have to do that to us? You know, and it's like when you think about it, like from the perspective of it's like this teen pregnancy where it's like, no, I can have control over my life. Through this, it's you know, it's sad, but it is also genuinely like you see her perspective as to like why she wants to do this and wants to like live
and why
this
this like is taking control.
Yes,
and everything.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Dany's whole like story of like learning to take control of her life and stuff.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. But yeah, so that's Dany's chapter. Anything else? Alrighty. And now, finally, Bran. And this is Bran IV.
That's right.
As we said, yes. And I think this is our first Bran chapter since his big dream chapter.
Yeah, since he's like been awake and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And he's sad.
Yeah. Yep.
He, you know, this chapter is just a lot of sort of Bran being sad about things
and not wanting to listen to Nan's stories until she finally gets him
with a scary story because he loves the scary stories. But he's like, you know, he's watching Rickon like run around with the wolves, and he's like, I wish I could do that. And he wanted to be down there laughing, running. His 8th name day had come and gone. He was almost a man grown now, which like, dude. It was just a lie, he said bitterly, remembering the crow from his dream. I can't fly. I can't even run. Crows are all liars, old Nan agreed. Yeah. And he's like, doesn't want to hear her stories.
Yeah.
My stories? No, my little lord, not mine. The stories are before me and after me, before you too. No one really knew how old Nan was, but his father said she'd been called Old Nan even when he was a boy.
Yeah.
So she's also super old, and perhaps, she's the oldest person here, perhaps the oldest person in Westeros, at least as far as Bran's concerned.
Yeah.
But Bran's a small child. And we get a little bit of, like, how she came to be here and all that, But, she was, like, a wet nurse.
Yeah, her son is Hodor?
Hodor is some relation to her.
Got you. Or, sorry, not son. She's super old. Like, grandson or great-nephew or something.
Yeah, he's just some sort of relationship to her. And Hodor, because he's, like, big and strong, he, like, carries Bran around. To sort of get him from place to place. The crow had tricked him into flying, but when he woke up, he was broken and the world was changed. They had all left him, and so he's feeling kind of abandoned by everyone because he was like, they said that I would get to ride a horse and come with them, but then they left without me. And it's like, you were in a coma for like a long time. Yeah. But, he's just a child. He doesn't get it in that way. Only Robb and baby Rickon were still here, and Robb was changed. He was Robb the Lord now. Yeah. Or trying to be. He wore a real sword and never smiled. Yeah. Yeah, because Robb's having to grow up too fast and be Lord of Winterfell when everyone else is gone. Yeah. And that's not, he doesn't get to be...
Catelyn left him alone again.
Yes. Right.
Like, it's just like, I know what she's trying to, but she left him, like, he needed her this whole time, and then
they had that conversation,
and then she's like, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm gonna just completely leave you alone. Like, he's like, I don't think that's what I said, was it?
Right. So I don't think that's what I said, really. I said that I needed you, and it's like, yes, you do need to, like, I get.
It's like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much, personally, I don't think she needed to go to King's Landing to do this whole dagger thing. This is her needing to have some control over something, and so she can, maybe I can find this or whatever.
Yeah, like,
and she doesn't need to do that.
No, she could have just sent Sir Roderick
again.
Yeah, she could have just sent Sir Roderick and had him go do it instead of, like,
And honestly, they would be less conspicuous.
Yeah, it would.
If you just send.
It would be.
Why are you there?
Why are you there?
Everyone's asking that. Like, people who know you're there. Why the fuck are you there?
Yep. Yeah.
Like, in every way, it doesn't. It's just. It's not good.
Right.
Like, you left you
left your son again.
Yeah. to take care of already super, like, low staffed, like, fucking like hold and everything. Like.
Right. And to take care of, like, your newly reawakened son who feels like everyone's abandoning him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Nan's, like, trying to cheer him up, trying to tell him stories. I could tell you the story about Bran the Builder. That was always your favorite. Thousands and thousands of years ago, Bran the Builder had raised Winterfell, and some said the Wall. He knew the story, but it never been his favorite.
Yeah.
He was probably getting me mixed up with one of the other Brandons. There's so many Brandons, and they all just blend together into the same Brandon to her. My favorites were the scary ones. Oh, my sweet summer child. And you said...
I heard that, and I just, like... Another one that's, like, slapped me in the middle of work. I was like, oh, shit, I forgot. That comes from here. What?
Yep, it does. It's like... It comes from here, but it's just been around on the internet for so long. It's just stuck.
It just felt like a fucking Twitter post or like a Tumblr post just, like, showed up in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
I'm like, where's this Tumblr post coming from? Oh, right, this is where it came from.
Yep. It's like going back and reading Shakespeare and being like, why is this so full of...
I was about to say JoJo's.
JoJo, Shakespeare, I'm
thinking of, like, the like the to be continued.
Yeah.
Like, that was one I didn't know was JoJo's until I started watching JoJo's, and then all of a sudden, it's the meme!
Oh, man. But,
Anyway.
Nan's like, what do you know of fear? Fear's for the winter, You've only ever been alive during the summer.
Yep.
You've been born and raised during the summer. You don't know what it really means.
I don't know what it means.
None of us do.
That's the thing.
Yet when the sun hides its face for years at a time, and little children are born and live and die all in darkness while the dire wolves grow gaunt and hungry, and the White Walkers move through the woods. You mean the others? The others, Nan agreed. Thousands and thousands of years ago, a winter fell that was cold and hard and endless beyond all memory of man. There came a night that lasted a generation, and kings shivered and died in their castles, even as the swineherds in their hovels. So, child, this is the sort of story you like? Well, yes, only in that darkness the others came for the first time. They were cold things, dead things, that hated iron and fire and the touch of the sun, and every creature with hot blood in its veins. Yeah, it's interesting that they supposedly hated iron, because that's a thing that's...
like fairies.
Very much associated with, like, fairies and whatnot. Yep. And they swept over Holdfast and cities, felled heroes and armies, and just everything was bad. Thousands of years ago, the long night happened and everything was bad.
Yep.
So as cold and death filled the earth, the last hero determined to seek out the children in the hopes that their ancient magic would win back what the armies of men had lost. He set out into the dead lands with a sword, a horse, a dog, and a dozen companions. And so people are like...
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, is it gonna be Jon? Because Jon's got, like, a wolf, and, you know, like, the Night's Watch, so maybe he'll...
But he's not super associated with horses.
Yeah, he's not so much associated with horses. I mean, it's like, you know, the Night's Watch do use horses, but he's not, like, you know, particularly associated with horses or anything. But it is still just, like, the dog.
Yeah.
And the companions, and maybe, you know... and also that, eventually, they all died... the others smelled the hot blood in him and came silent on his trail, stalking him with packs of pale white spiders, big as hounds. Yeah, the others have, like, giant spiders for some reason, which is fun. The door opened with a bang. Bran's heart leapt up into his mouth. And then Hodor's there. And Maester Luwin is like, we have visitors. Who is it? Tyrion Lannister. With word from your brother Jon. And so then the Night's Watch people and Tyrion have made it to Winterfell so that he can
give his messages
and also talk about how Benjen's missing.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
And Robb doesn't believe him because he's been going through too much and...
Yeah, they're like, no, Benjen's been gone for a while. He's probably dead. No, he's not. He's not dead.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, yeah, and also we get a little bit about, like, Hodor. Theon Greyjoy had once commented that Hodor did not know much, but no one could doubt that he knew his name. Old Nan had cackled like a hen when Bran told her that, and confessed that Hodor's real name was Walder. No one knew where Hodor had come from, she said, but when he started saying it, they started calling him by it. It was the only word he had. Yeah, so it's like, what's up with Hodor? Why is he Hodor?
Yep.
Any man of the Night's Watch is welcome here. Any man of the Night's Watch, but not me. Because they're suspicious of Tyrion.
Yeah.
And, but then Tyrion is nice. He's, like, talking to Bran, and he has the, like, special saddle that he designed that he gives to Maester Luwin.
It's like this will work for you.
This will work for you. Get a horse, one that hasn't really been trained yet, so you can train it, to, you know, it can't follow his, like, legs.
Yeah.
So, you know, train it specifically to, like, listen to his voice and to, like, follow the reins and use the special saddle, and he'll be able to ride. And Bran's super happy and excited about that. And Tyrion's like, it's not too much different from my own saddle, because I also need
a special
assistance in order to ride and whatnot. And that really helps sort of win Robb over. Robb's like, actually, you've only actually been nice to us, so you can stay here. And he's like, no, I'm gonna go sleep in a tavern somewhere. Don't you bother about it. Again, more seeing Tyrion be actually kind of like nice while everyone's thinking that he fucking tried to have Bran murdered. And he came up
with a way to help Bran, because Jon was like, help him somehow.
And he figured out a way.
Yep.
I have a tender spot in my heart for cripples and bastards and broken things.
Yeah, so he was obviously thinking about it on the way, like...
Mm-hmm. Yep, he was. And he like, drew out the designs, and they're like, oh, these are, like
great,
These are great. These are well drawn. Like, Tyrion has, like, these talents that are just, like, underappreciated by, like, his family. Because they're all, like... He's basically, like, kind of an engineer.
Yeah.
And then the wolves get mad at Tyrion.
Yeah,
they don't like him too much. Summer, like, starts going after him, and they have to call the wolves off. And that's just a little, like, thing that feels like foreshadowing somehow. It's like when the wolves don't like someone, you're always a little bit like,
Yep.
The magic wolves don't like you. That's a bad sign. Yeah. I may have been hasty with you. You've done Bran a kindness, and well, the hospitality of Winterfell is yours. But Tyrion says, "Spare me your false courtesy." But like Rob does. He's actually changed his mind. But Tyrion, I feel like, has a hard time sort of believing those sorts of things. He's used to everyone
being fake polite.
Being fake polite all the time. Yeah. So coming up here to the north, where they're a little bit more just like brutally honest.
Yeah.
It's kind of clashes with his sensibilities, I feel. And then Bran goes to sleep, and he has a dream of climbing a tower, like a huge tower. The earth was 1,000 miles beneath him, and he could not fly. And then he comes across some gargoyles. Perhaps once they had been lions, but now they were twisted and grotesque. Bran could hear them whispering to each other in soft stone voices, terrible to hear. I didn't hear, he wept as they came closer and closer. I didn't. So it's like he's forgotten and like remember when the dream was happening, he like remembers.
Yeah, but then
the crow pecks the memory away, and then he legitimately forgot. Yeah. He's legitimately forgotten, and now in his dream it's like this weird gargoyle like he half remembers.
Yep, and they were lions, which is like the Lannister.
Yep. Exactly.
Like thing, deformed lions.
Yep, because the Lannisters have the lion as their heraldry. And, so he has that dream, and then we get the talk with, like, the Night's Watch people talking about how Benjen's gone and he's probably dead. Yeah, they do refer to J.O. as the Old Bear. The Old Bear sent him out to look for Waymar Royce, and he's late returning, my lord. Too long. Most like he's dead. My uncle is not dead. Robb Stark said loud, anger in his tone. Do you hear me? My uncle is not dead. Whatever you say, my lord.
Yeah.
And then Bran blurts out, "The children will help him, the children of the forest." And of course Theon laughs at that, and Maester Luwin's like, "Bran, the children of the forest have been dead and gone for thousands of years. All that is left of them are the faces in the trees." "Down here might be that's true, Maester," Yoren said. "But up past the wall, who's to say? Up there, a man can't always tell what's alive and what's dead."
Yeah.
So, as far as they're concerned, the children of the forest were a real people that existed, but have, like, died out or something. And they're somehow responsible for the faces in the weirwood trees. Because they say all that's left of them are the faces in the trees. Yeah. Which, to me, is kind of unclear as to whether or not that's supposed to mean that they
are the trees.
They somehow became the trees, or that they just, like, carved the faces in the trees. I feel like I'll see people, like, say they carved the faces, and I'm like, with the way it's said, it almost makes it sound like they just, like, are the faces in the trees somehow, which is fascinating, Yeah, and it's funny because the Night's Watch people don't actually immediately dismiss them. They're like, it's hard to tell what's dead and what's alive out there.
Yeah. We're being attacked by a dog again.
We are. She's like literally right between me and the microphone. and just like getting her face up in my face, and I'm like leaning back and trying to read and all that.
Tilly.
And so then once that's done, Bran and Robb talk. They have a little talk.
Yeah.
And Bran's like
he's using like his actual voice and not
Lord Robb voice. Yeah. And it's like, oh, are they going to be coming back? And it's like, oh yeah, for sure, well, you're going to be able to ride a horse, and Mom's going to be so surprised, and
we can go up and see Jon, and
yep, we'll ride north to see the wall. We won't even tell Jon we're coming. We'll just be there one day, you and me. It'll be an adventure. An adventure, Bran repeated wistfully. He heard his brother sob. The room was so dark he could not see the tears on Rob's face, so he reached out and found his hand. Their fingers twinned together.
Yeah.
So, and it's like he's crying, and like, I'm like, is it like a happy cry or like a sad cry? Does he think it's actually that they're actually gonna be able to do that, or is he?
I think it's probably both.
Yeah.
Because, like, even if they go up and see Jon, like, the rest of the family is all in,
yeah. And so it's like, I think there is a certain level of, like, you'll actually be able to, like, it's like, Tyrion's actually, like, helped, and you'll actually be able to, like, ride a horse, and you'll be able to do more than you thought you could, and it's kind of like a relief, that you will have a life.
Yeah. Some amount of independence.
Some amount of independence, which is good. Yep. And so that's Bran. Anything else for this chapter you wanna?
No, I don't think so.
Alrighty. Yep, so that's been this section. Yeah. We'll have to figure out what the next section is going to be.
We haven't looked at it yet. It'll probably be like 6 to like 8, or like I'll say 6 to like 10 chapters. I'm guessing will be the next section.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like that tends to be a good good sweet spot for us.
Right. So, do we have any like what we've been reading or anything?
What we've been reading? I've just been listening to some YouTube.
Oh yeah,
watching a bunch of Hassan streams.
Right. We there's been new first time listener Magnus Archives. Which was great. There was a new video, and then also the like Q&A, and the Q&A was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed reading the Q&A because it's good to get a little bit of the like what's like
Edwin the character, and
then what's like, sort of the line. And also
I forgot the real name.
Yeah.
I only know Edwin, which is the character.
Right, yeah, because like the channel is called like Endicott or whatever. But I also like, because like the top, or like they had pinned the comment, like their comment was like, wait, did you guys think I was actually British? Yeah. And I'm like, I sniffed it out.
I thought that they might be British. Like
I had my suspicion that they weren't British. Because like that had always been a little bit of a part of it.
Yeah.
Where I'm like listening and I'm like, I don't think that's a real British accent. Yeah. Which just made it a little bit like listening to it. I'm like the whole time I'm like, is that? I don't think so. I don't think that's real. Is it? It's a real British accent. And because then also like they would mention like places,
like because they were like looking up
like what like the places
in the UK and
stuff.
Like
how close they were to each other and all this sort of stuff. And you're like, and I remember
like maybe they are from there. And
and I remember you saying it's interesting to get this from like a British perspective or whatever.
Nope.
And then I didn't say anything at the time, but I was like, I don't know that they're actually British though.
Nope.
So it's like, okay, good.
Just had Google.
Yep, it's just good to have some confirmation there. But I enjoy. I really enjoyed the Q&A.
Oh yeah.
And we need to listen to the actual Magnus Archives Q&As and stuff. And listen to more Magnus. I'm always listening to more Magnus and stuff.
We did listen to a bit more, and we watched Mob Psycho.
We did. We finished season 1 of Mob Psycho because Nerdy started doing his reactions for Mob Psycho, and then he was about to be
past where you are.
Past where I was, so then we finished it. And
we finished the whole end of the season. Basically the last half of the season.
Yep. And so now I'm really excited for
season
him.
2.
Yep.
Well, and for him to get to it.
For him to get to it, and for like season 2 and stuff. Yep. So yeah. And see, that's the thing. Endicott you just need to, every time you upload, we then listen to a little bit more Magnus Archives.
Yeah, I mean that is normally what happens.
Yes, and you've so graciously been in our comments whenever we mention you, which makes me sometimes hesitant to mention you because I'm like, I don't want to bother you.
But it's great.
But it's great. It's so nice to like see you there and stuff because it's like we're so teeny tiny YouTube. Yeah. And so it's fun to like
hear from people
and whatnot. So that's basically what we've been reading outside, which is to say we haven't been reading.
Mainly listening and watching.
And stuff. So this has been Let's Talk About Book. Do the YouTube things, Oh, we're also on Spotify now.
Yeah, Spotify.
We've been uploading all of our stuff to Spotify slowly.
We have a bunch of Mistborn up, but we're not caught up to what we have out here yet.
Yeah, so once we get caught up to what we have out here yet, I'll start like posting them both at the same time and all that. So again, if you're one of the Game of Thrones listeners and you're like, oh, I'd love to listen to your Mistborn stuff, but I would prefer to do it on Spotify. You can do it there, if you so desire. If that so happens to exactly describe you, feel free to do that. But anyway, this has been Let's Talk About Book. And now you can go forth and think about book on your own time. Have a lovely whatever time it may be.
Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.